Some of you will probably have seen the video where I made these little lens blanking prisms. I've been loaned one of the lights into which they fit, so I thought I'd just show that. This is it. It sits, I believe, down in the runway, probably off to one edge, and a beam of light comes from here and from here. And for various reasons, which I know not, they sometimes want to blank off the light coming in one of the two directions. Now, there are two glass prisms here, and if we turn it over, we can see them. Here they are. And what they do is they simply take out one of the glass prisms and they put one of these solid metal ones in, and that then blanks the light off in that given direction. Now, it has to be, as I've said before, the same shape as the glass one, because it has to fit into this rubber gasket. And this gasket's important because it keeps the weather out of the light and the electrics in it. Now, normally I make these things 10 or 20 at a time, and I just do it in a simple mould like this, where there are two in each mould. But things have changed suddenly. I've got an order for 150 of these, and the thought of making 75 sand moulds at the rate of 10 a day fills me with absolute terror. So I've got to do something different, particularly when there is a potential order after the 150 for 1,000. And no way am I going to make 500 moulds in sand. It would just be crazy. Years ago, I developed a technique for making these. They're a support block that holds linear shafting, and we did quite well with these until the Chinese or the Koreans or someone undercut us very, very greatly. But I cast these in an aluminium die. Now, it might surprise some of you to realise that you can cast aluminium into an aluminium die, but it works quite well for a relatively small number of castings. For one that size, I probably would have got maybe 500 before I'd have to replace the die. Now, the die itself is made fairly easily. That's a bronze master I have made. I've machined that up, stamped the numbers in the end, then you sit that on a steel plate with a cavity this shape around it in a sand mould, and simply pour it. And you wind up, if I can get it out again, and you wind up with a usable die, and then that's put in a particular machine that actually tilt casts it, and we'll see all that later. So I'm now going to make some of these up in bronze, so I can make a little twin cavity die and cast them that way, and it'll be much, much quicker. I'll get the 150 in one day then, but I have to go down the road of making the die. This will probably be a 2 or 3 part video, and today it's the making of the bronze masters. Later we'll see the making of the actual die itself, and then we'll see the casting of the die. Now, it's an interesting process that works very well for simple shapes like this, where the casting shrinks away from the die. It will not work if you've got a casting that's a bit more intricate and some of it would pull against the die, because that destroys the aluminium die quite quickly. But for those, it works very well, and I must have made over the years thousands of these in a range of sizes, from one about half this size to one about twice that size. So, okay, we'll get into making the moulds for the bronze ones. I'll make 3 moulds, pick the best 2, and then make the die from those 2. Now, you've seen this done before, so I won't bore you with it again. I'll cut now, and I'll come back later when I do cut the pouring basin that I use, because I think that basin is an important message to get out to people who want to do their own casting work, because it is so much better than what most people use. I did say I'd show the cutting of the pouring basin on this. I know I've showed it before, but the new pouring basin I'm using is such an important part of producing a good casting that it's worth seeing again. And I just use this thin brass tube, and I got a mark there 30mm up or so, and I just simply push that into the sand to that mark, wobble it around a bit, and I just put something like that on to help keep the edges down. That's not too bad. Now it's just a matter of joining the sprue and the basin up. That's just a cut down cheap spoon, stainless steel spoon, and we just delicately join the two of them up but leave a ridge. Now that basin's about 30mm deep, and I want to leave a ridge about 10mm high. This basin's, it's not the be-all and end-all of making the perfect casting, but it's an important part of doing that. It has to be atop a tapered sprue. It's a waste of time if it isn't. And the taper sprue doesn't want to be too big. Most people tend to use their sprues way too big and often way too high. And I think it's for fear that the metal will go solid in them. Well, it won't. And if you really, not as long as it's moving anyway, and if you really want to see an excellent example of just what you can do with small sprues, Paul from Paul's Garage has a video where he makes a bronze spear tip, and his sprue was moulded using a 1/4-inch piece of copper tube. Now that's a pretty small sprue. Now he tapered it a bit, as he should have, to the best of his ability, and he wound up producing quite a reasonable casting with it. And if you look at his video, you'll see the sprue and you will say to yourself, no way will that work, no way will that run. But yes, it did quite successfully. As I say, most people use sprues that are absolutely way too big. Now the important thing here is that the junction with the sprue and the ridge has got a good radius. That's not too bad. I think that'll be fine, that one. Now all I've got to do is cut the gates. Just lift this off. Here we go. Now, I've got some little bits of cardboard that were sitting on top of the parts. They were simply there to make the part a little bit thicker. And it'll leave a bit of a daggy edge, but I'll cut that off afterwards. That won't be a problem. Now, I'll put the gate on. Smooth that up a little bit. Okay. Clean the sprue out, and I'll just radius this side of the sprue here. Remembering the metal's going to come out and turn and go that way, so it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of a radius there. Now I'll cut the runner. I'll just turn it around this way. It's a bit easier for me if I do. Straight down between them, more or less. More or less. Not too straight. Part of the trick here is to finish the end here with a bit of a taper. And also to try and, well, I've gone a bit deep with the sprue, but to try and put a bit of a curve on that end of it as well. Brush it smooth. Not too bad, that won't be too bad. I think I'll just perhaps smooth that up a little. There we go. That'll be right, I hope. Loosen these. I want to loosen them a fair bit because I want them to gain in size. Yeah. That's given them a bit of size, I think, a bit more size. Now we'll get these two out the easy way. There we go. Just a quick tap to get them in the middle, I hope. And lift off gently. Come on, up you come, darling. There we go. Get those off. Now I only actually need 2 of these, and I've made moulds for 6, so I'll just pick the best 2 when I need them. Now, try I'll close the mould rather, it's only one of them. Just put it there where we can all see what we're doing. Up we come, there we go. Just checking there, it looks a bit as if there's a bit of loose sand in there. Perfect. Now, blow this one out. Make certain there are no loose grains in here. Delicately, I don't want to blow the edges away. Now, I want a particularly sharp casting, and by that I mean I want it to take the impression of the mould very well. And as an aid to that, I'm actually going to dry these moulds in an oven for some hours, and if there's no water in the sand, there's much less to cool the metal down, much less gas to stop it running into the sharpness of the mould. So we should wind up, I hope, with a nice sharp casting on the mould. The only thing I've found about drying them in the oven, apart from the fact that it takes quite a long time, is that you need to sit them on something very flat to give them good support. If you don't, the moulds can crack. First a bit of blower, and we have fuel pressure. Get the right glove here and see, and we will be away. Oh boy, that crucible's small compared to that furnace. Bit of air, a bit of fuel, fire in the hole. That'll do for a start. I guess because of the size of the furnace and the temperature I got to get to, it'll take me close to an hour to melt this, but we'll see. Time to add some metal. See? Rats. See the crucible? Ooh, it's getting a bit hot on the face. That'll do for the moment. Right, watch it, radiant heat will be quite bad. First I'll get the crap off the top of it. Come on the other side, you might see a bit better. Whoa! Oh, that's warm. Right. Keep going, keep going. Watch your feet, watch your feet. Ooh, that is heavy. Can't quite get where I want to go. Right, we've got it. It's not good. 1. Oh, faster, 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 faster. 1. That's better. Got that pull better. And that one's not too bad. Okay. And there we go. It's still glowing pretty red there. Wow, are they ever? Lovely golden colour this stuff has. Beautiful. Where's my tongs? Here. Well, you can't see much at the moment, of course, because there's sand stuck all over them, but I think they'll be all right by the look of them. They look promising. We'll see what they look like when they're cleaned up. It's a bit burnt on sand stuck to them, but I think they'll clean up nicely. A few defects there. Well, there's one there I can use, and I only need 2, so defects on both of those, so that might be a problem. That one's all right, I think. Well, they will be with a bit of work. Yeah, some minor surface defects on some of them, because the metal as it's come in has flowed down that edge. It's come in and it's flowed down that edge there, so that might have caused a few problems. So I think we can do a couple there we can work with, I hope. My fears for the surface finish of these and their usability for as masters to cast a die against were a little unfounded. I managed to pick the best 2 quite easily, and these were they. Drilled them and tapped them on the back and put a thread in and thinned them down a little here. Bolted them on a steel plate and used them to make the die. You will see that in the next episode of this video. The action of drying the moulds in the oven has absolutely produced the most wonderful mould fill. These corners are as sharp as they could absolutely be, and the finish of this particular material, which is an aluminium silicon bronze, is pretty reasonable indeed. I'm not at all unhappy really. There's just a little bit of roughness on some of them on the face the metal ran down into, probably because I forgot to brush the edge of the mould that was along here. But we got the 2 we needed, and that's the main thing. Oh, and what am I going to do with these? Well, I suppose I could use them as paperweights, but they will sooner or later, I guess, just get put back in the pot and melted down to make something else.